Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Jason. How you doing? Happy Sunday.
Yeah, happy Sunday. It's back to the twice-a-week schedule here. We started last year about the same time, and I guess it is that time of year again to get it going again.
Yeah. How was your weekend?
Weekend was pretty good. No tournaments to go to for the kids. That'll be coming up the next few weekends. But yeah, kind of a pretty chill weekend around here, actually. How about you?
Super busy. A lot of fun in the sun. My son is back in swim lessons, so we're doing that in the mornings on Saturday from now on. And we also made it out to Midnapore Lake. Today we went to Princess Island Park. I took my two kids for a walk in Fish Creek today. So yeah, feeling like I was out in the sun a lot. Pretty tired, pretty exhausting weekend overall, but still managed to catch some soccer, and I'm happy and excited to talk about that tonight.
Yeah, so this is the first episode of the year of our Sunday night, Monday morning recap show. So we're going to review the results of all the matches from this weekend. We're going to review Cavalry FC, and they played against Supra. Calgary Wild played Ottawa Rapid, and then the opening matches of the Alberta Premier League season, we'll talk about them too. So yeah. What do you think, Scott? Should we get started with Cavalry?
Let's kind of go with Cavalry as they played this afternoon, and that's the most recent game, most fresh in our memory. And then we can chat about the Wild, and I guess we can then chat about the Friday night game, which I know that you were at.
You bet.
Hi, this is Tobias Warschewski. You're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Cavalry's first trip to Quebec ended with a 1-0 win over Supra, thanks to a late penalty goal from Tobias Warschewski. Looked like it was going to end goalless, but Cavalry did get the spot kick right before stoppage time, and Toby made no mistake. A pretty even match, Jason, overall. But, for large stretches of this, I actually really liked how Supra played.
Yeah, they played Cavalry really tough. And I don't know what the final XG was in this game, but it was a low XG kind of game. There wasn't really, tons of chances. Cavalry had possession of the ball, but, Supra kind of seemed up to the challenge and stood tall. And they had some opportunities as well, maybe not quite as many as Cavalry, but, and they had a really excellent chance to tie it up at the end too. So yeah, I think, I come away from watching Supra for the first time somewhat impressed.
Yeah, this wasn't my first time watching them. This was my third game watching them. And pretty much every time I see them play, I think this isn't Vancouver FC 2.0. I think this team is going to really be in the mix in the Canadian Premier League. Obviously, there are some question marks when they decided to go with a Quebec-only roster. They're kind of doing the Athletic Bilbao model and when it comes to player recruitment, but they have the experience through guys like Sean Rea and Diadina Abzi and David Chouanier, and you can see that, right? You can see how they're leaders on the team, but they have these other players who, a lot of them haven't even had that much or any pro experience, but they don't look out of place at all. So my biggest takeaway from this game wasn't about really Cavalry. It was about the fact that this Supra du Quebec team I think they're going to be competitive this year.
Well, based on what we've seen so far, they're middle of the pack, I think, fourth place?
Yeah.
And it seems like they get, full value for that. From what I can tell, they seem to have shown better than Ottawa. They've shown better than Pacific or Vancouver FC, so they've probably done better than Halifax too. So that's good for a first-year team.
Yeah. Right in the middle of the pack, 2-2. 5 goals for, 5 goals against, so solidly mid-table. And yeah, York United has looked pretty strong as well. They're 2 points ahead of them at the moment. But I guess if we do want to talk about Cavalry, since we are a Calgary soccer podcast, I mean, what struck out to you, Jason? I like this note you wrote down that shows that Tommy Wheeldon Jr. hasn't been tinkering that much this season. And that was the case again this game.
Yeah, the lineup has been really consistent. Through 5 matches, 9 players have started all 5 matches. And then when you look at the other 2 positions, part of that was Ali Musi's, presumably his lack of fitness to start the season, and he's kind of locked in that one of those other spots. And yeah, so Amir Didic has been out for the last couple games. So with the exception of a couple of players, it's been a pretty consistent lineup overall. And I guess there really hasn't been a lot of need to to change things, really, when it comes right down to it.
Yeah, 11 points from a possible 15 in their first 5 games, 7 goals for, 3 goals against. What I did notice, however, Jason, and I was hoping this could get asked in the press conference today, as I wasn't participating in that, was the fact that they have gone a while without scoring from open play. If you think about today's goal was a penalty kick, their goal against Inter-Toronto last week came off of a free kick. And then they had that goalless draw with Forge the match day before that. We're going all the way back, I think, match day 2 when they won 3-1 at Spruce Meadows against Ottawa. That Gauthier Natigny's goal, the third goal of that game, that was the last time they've scored from open play.
So, Scott, I actually did ask that question because you sent it to me by text right before the press conference. And here's Tommy's answer.
Hey, Tommy, congrats on the win and happy birthday.
Hey, thanks, Jason.
Want to ask about, you were able to get the penalty near at the end of the match, but it's been 3 matches now with no goals and open play. Any comment about what you think is missing maybe at the end there? I guess ultimately the result was what you wanted, but just want to ask that question.
Yeah, listen, again, that's a positive scenario to be in. And, we've spoke a lot about slow starts. And I think, a lot of these games are like 1-goal games. So to win it on a penalty, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to look back and say, right, if only we've won 3 points, we're getting that right. We're not, I don't think there was many shots other than the one Nate saved at the end. And last year we only won, 3 games on the road? So we're close to matching that already. If all we've got to do now is fire up Toby, Sergio, Gauthier, and Musi to score an open play, I've got an easy job.
So what are your thoughts about that response, Scott?
I think the abridged version of that answer is 3 points is 3 points, right? And they're not going to dwell on how they got the win. Penalties, yeah, they got the penalty. Like, I think it was the right call. So
I wanted to talk about those. Like, what did you think of those 2 massive reversals?
Well, this one I think was the right call.
Yeah, I couldn't really understand the One Soccer guys really saying that's not a penalty, that's not a penalty. Like, the super defender just played the body, he played the man. He wasn't playing the ball. And, to me, if you're basically playing the man and not playing the ball, that's a foul.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you got to know that the striker is going to be looking for contact in the box.
So when I saw that play, I thought there is a good chance that's going to get reversed, and it was the difference in the match. And then there was the other reversal where Niko Myroniuk got called for a foul in the box, I think a couple minutes into injury time, and that one got reversed. And so I'm not completely sure about, whether that was a penalty or not. And, my first reaction was it could very well be a penalty, but my wife actually watched that play and she said, well, the Montreal player kind of ran in Nico's way. So I don't know how much you want to glean from that, but she's not exactly knows the details of these fouls, but she's perceived herself that the Montreal player really tried to somehow make it happen. But anyway, the bottom line is the video reviews have made a big difference for Cavalry. You can make an argument that because of reversals and calls have probably directly led them to 2 match-winning goals. So from that perspective, the system's been working well for them.
Yeah, and I'm not that surprised by it. I always feel like Cavalry has been a team that has been hard done by with some of these calls in the past, right? And I remember in our preseason interview with Tommy this year, we asked him about how much of a difference do you think the video review system is going to have? And he was like, it's going to be huge. Like, he said it right off the bat, like he'd been dwelling on it. So I think he knew that if you think about some of these close calls that Cavalry has been on the wrong end of in the past, imagine, if those had gone their way and if they had that review system that they have now. So I think Cavalry is a team that, for the most part, it's not always going to go their way, but I think they are going to get a majority of reversals through this system. All right, so 5 games in, Cavalry, as we've mentioned, are in second place, 2 points back of Forge FC, who are still unbeaten with 4 wins and 1 draw. Forge looked really good against Halifax from what I saw of the highlights. So as you and I predicted, Jason, the 2-horse race theory is still alive and well for CPL 2026.
Yeah, but Inter Toronto had a pretty good match this weekend as well. So they're not quite up there with them, but they're not getting left behind right now. So
yeah, that was a 4-1 win over Ottawa. Yeah, they do look really good right now, actually. 2 wins and 2 draws. So actually, they could be equal on points with Cavalry if they win their game in hand.
Hi, this is Tegan Stewart. You're listening to YYC Soccer Podcast.
All right, let's segue to talk about the Calgary Wild, Jason. They were in the nation's capital on Saturday afternoon, taking on the Ottawa Rapid. Lots of goals in this one. Overall, though, a pretty miserable day for Calgary Wild as the Rapid won 5-2, despite Calgary taking a 2-1 lead by the 12th minute.
Yes, I was going to say if they can take anything out of it, I guess they did very briefly have the lead in a match, and had a couple good minutes there. 2 goals, one from the spot, Maggie Doherty-Howard, and then pretty much immediately afterward, Tegan Stewart scored a kind of seeing eyeball that went underneath a couple players and found its way into the net. Is a well played ball.
Yeah, and that followed a first-minute goal from the Rapid. So a terrible start to the game from the Wild, but they did make amends within the next 10 minutes or so. But from that point forward, just like last week, but earlier in the match, their defense just unraveled. Ottawa equalized in the 27th minute, and then they took a 3-2 lead, and I think it was actually 4-2 before the half. Yeah, and so a ton of goals in the first half and only one in the second, but actually both teams in the second had plenty of attacking threats. It was a game where defending seemed optional at both sides of the pitch. But overall, I mean, Calgary, leaky defense and just not able to capitalize up front. And 5-2 is probably a deserved result, if I'm being honest.
I'm starting to get worried, Scott. I think we talked about this, and we've alluded to it in the podcast, and we've talked, offline, and there are a couple things that I think we were wondering about, and it seems like some of the things that we thought, if this happens and that happens, things could go south, and seems like we're starting to see a couple of those things happen.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot last week about the lack of depth in defense, and that was, I think, on display again. Just too many mistakes at the back, right? And also some really, really bad giveaways of possession, either just outside of, or in some cases even inside of their own box, right? Like it's a case where the back four is really leaky right now. And if they had the forwards banging in the goals left and right to make up for that, and they were winning games 3-2 or 4-3, I guess that would be one thing. But so far, I mean, 2 goals in 2 games. It's not happening for the Wilds at either end of the pitch.
I look at this team and I don't see how they're going to concede less than 2 goals, like in any game. Like they're just the miscues. And the other thing that's been happening is in transition, they're getting caught on transition all the time. And, there's just one good through ball, one good pass, and a player's just getting set free and going in on goal. That's happening with real regularity. And you combine that with just the miscues. And I don't know how much of it is there's been goalkeeping errors. And I'm not sure if the goalkeeping errors are related to what's happening in front of the keeper or it's the keeper herself. But it's not looking great right now.
No, it's not. And I think you kind of summed it up.
But, here's the thing, Scott, and I don't want to just go on and on about this, but I made this post on social media yesterday, and I said, is there a team anywhere in the world, either men's or women's, that have 2 natural center backs on their roster only? And for that matter, one of them, they refuse to play them. It's just it's not a formula that can work even.
No.
I don't, how can you have a defense set up in that manner. You got to have players that actually have some level of experience and have played that position before. And like we said, there is one player that does, and in Talia White, and she doesn't play. So I just don't see how like Michaela Moore, when she gets healthy and can play a full match, well, that's obviously going to help. But who's playing beside her, right? Tora Betteridge is playing, I think, pretty well for a 17-year-old, but she's not the solution. And, she's going to be off to school very shortly. I think that would be another thing. If you're relying on a youth permit player to be one of your regular starters, that's not a good sign.
Yeah. And another thing we talked about last week is you can make the injury argument, but it's only week 2, right? Like you sent me an updated list of how many players on the Wild are injured, and it's 8 or 9 players right now? And
8 players.
8 players.
They have 23 players on their roster. 15 of them dressed yesterday, and 8 of them are on the injured list. And then they had 4 youth players to round them up to 19. But we don't know how long Maya Jones is out for. Farkunda Mataj, we don't really know what's going on, but she was the very first player signed in Wild history, and she has never set foot on the pitch. So I think she's a pretty fantastic ambassador for the team. She's done a lot of good stuff in the community and everything like that. But if she can't play, hire her in the front office and free up the roster spot, because they need roster spots. I don't follow that.
Right. And I mean, other signings too. I think we were both excited about Ali Hess, and she's injured at the moment. Caitlin Talbert, she has probably the most impressive resume of the goalkeeping trio for the Wild. And I guess I didn't realize this, but she's on the injured list. So yeah, they have some exciting signings that they made in the offseason, but none of them are able to play. And another concern, I think, is Sarita Thurton, who's probably their fastest player, if not one of their fastest players. And she's injured too. So yeah, obviously, you factor all those injuries into the performance, and it's no wonder why it's not going well. But the fact that there are that many injuries in the second week of a 25-week season it's a head scratcher, because that's something that happened last year too. Look in comparison with all the other teams. Only Vancouver Rise have a similar number of players out, and that's most of them are in doubt, not injured.
This is a team that didn't make the playoffs. They brought in some players to help shore up the team, and none of them are playing. The player that they probably projected to be the backup keeper is the only one who's seen the pitch so far.
Right. Yeah, I think, and like I said, those other 3, I think, are big name signings, but yeah, they're not playing yet. And we don't know when they will either.
Yeah, and here's the thing. On Friday night, the Wild U23 team made their debut in the Alberta Premier League, and when you look at the game sheet, Ali Hess was listed as the head coach.
Yeah, day before the game in Ottawa.
So this is they've planned to have an APL team for months and months. This is not a new idea. And they knew this game was happening. And so for the first game in APL history, they voluntold one of their injured players on the team to be the head coach. What does that really say? I don't think it says anything good, though.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. What I like, if I do want to kind of try and end the conversation on a positive note, I would say it is only the first 2 games, and I think we'll have to see how things go in the weeks to come. But yeah, not a good start at all. A very bad start for the season.
This is Tommy Wilden Jr., and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Let's switch gears and talk about the opening weekend of the Alberta Premier League schedule. And by the way, I wonder how many times we are going to accidentally call it League One Alberta, because we did it a couple times when we were recording last week. I still found one more version of it before the final edit went out. So I'm sure we're going to do it a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, even Ramon Mifflin in our interview last episode kind of used the 2 interchangeably, right? So I think even the people heavily involved with this league are still getting used to the new nomenclature. APL, Alberta Premier League, season kicked off Friday night. Jason, you actually went to one of these games. Cavalry Reserves versus Calgary Villains at SAIT. The nice downtown backdrop, Friday evening kickoff. 2-0 win for the Cavs. What do you make of the game?
Well, first thing I'd say is that there was a nice crowd there. I don't know what the numbers, how many were actually there, but reasonably well attended. There were a bunch of foot soldiers there too. And yeah, it was, I thought, a pretty good vibe overall. And the match itself, well, I was only there for about the last half hour, but Cavalry was pretty dominant during that time. That's when they scored both their goals, and both goals were scored by Azaria Abibi. I'm probably getting that wrong, but they were playing on the far side, like the side closer to the skyline as the Cavalry offensive area. So I was standing behind the other goal, and I didn't see a lot of action up close. There wasn't a lot of action up close to see. So
I did Google the goal scorer, Azariah Abibi, and it looks like he's a 2008 and actually played for Calgary Villains, I believe. So playing against his club and yeah, got a brace. He scored both of Calgary's goals.
From the senior team, Maël Henry was out there for about the last half hour as well. So he's getting himself back into game shape. And Michael Harms and Max Peepgrass played the full 90.
No surprise there. I remember watching them last year, and Michael Harms was definitely like a leader on that team.
The Villains played Cavalry II, and they also played the Wild U23s, which we talked about earlier in the Wild segment.
Yeah, the Wild won 3-1 with goals coming from Maya Emberley, Reese Kincaid, and Abigail Anderson, while Villains' lone goal came from Brooke Miller.
And, the Wild U23 team definitely has some interesting names on it. Reese Kincaid scored. We know a fair bit about her already. And Ashlyn Walia started for the team. And so they've definitely done a pretty good job of bringing in some big names.
Yeah, good strong start for them.
And up in Edmonton, BTB played the Rangers both on the men's side and the women's side. And not a lot of success for Rangers this weekend.
Well, on the women's side, it was a goalless draw. But yeah, on the men's side, BTB beat Rangers 2-0. So no goals for either Rangers team on their trip north.
Okay, Scott. Well, I think we've hit all of it now, haven't we? Maybe the only thing we'll mention here, because it'll happen between the release of this podcast and the next one, is don't forget Wednesday night, the Blizzard take on CF Montreal in the Canadian Championship.
Yeah, I believe there are even some watch parties being arranged in Calgary. So make sure to watch this. It's history in the making. Yeah, Calgary Blizzard taking on MLS opposition at Stade Saputo.
Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this podcast downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archive and find other options to listen, including our YouTube channel. We also have links there to buy Scott's book. It's called Here Come the Cavalry, and it's all about the history of pro soccer in Calgary. You can leave a question or comment in the Contact Us section of our website. You can also interact with us on social media such as Twitter, Instagram, or Blue Sky, where our username is @YYCSoccer403. Thanks for listening.